want to tell you a little bit about what worked for me. Now, none of this is about saying, right, one of the first things here is, this is my lived experience. This is what I learned. This is what worked for me. One of the things about this is there isn't a, do that, bang, you're better. Take that, bang, you're better. It doesn't work like that. And we have to find our own way of managing. We have to understand our own struggles as best we can and find a way of managing our depression, our illness. And I want to talk to you about some of the treatments and some of the things that helped me. So like I said, it's a very individual thing, and none of this is intended to be a prescription that, I did this so you go off and do it. It's not about that. But I say my experience might be able to help you somewhat. Okay, so first thing for me was a massive help was counselling. Now, it's funny, culturally, again, we have this thing about not wanting to admit the help. Now, America has a very different attitude towards counselling, or therapy, as it's often referred to over there. Tony Soprano had therapy. You have Fraser, a TV show that's entirely based around a psychologist. And having a therapist is a kind of a relatively normal thing over in America. And whereas over here, it's something that you go to when you're really struggling. And even then, as men, most don't. They don't even seek help at that, real low ebb. But what counselling can do is really get you to understand and know yourself better. And that is useful for anybody. I would advocate that for anybody. The things you learn about yourself just can really just enhance the quality of your life in so many different ways, because when you're more conscious of who you are and why you behave the way you do, and whether it serves you, whether it, having a chance to explore whether those patterns of behaviour have served you well or whether they've held you back, the insights it brings are just incredibly beneficial. Now, so this can be, like I said, I'd advocate it for anybody, and there should be no shame whatsoever in seeking counselling. Again, this is not about being broken, it's about understanding ourselves. And the better we do that, the more skillfully, if you like, that we can live our lives. Now, the other thing that's important, one of the things that I found to be very important about counselling, and I've seen a few different counsellors over the years, is there's different methods. You have CBT, you have various schools of theory around counselling, but ultimately it's like with the teachers, a personal interaction. You can have two teachers with the same subject knowledge, but there's got to be, we remember certain teachers that might be like a connection, a certain level of connection, a resonance, that they communicated, taught in a way that just clicked with us. Well, it's similar with a counsellor or a therapist. It's about finding the right one for us. So, and I say that because sometimes people might have one or two sessions with somebody and it just doesn't kind of quite click, so they think counselling's not for them. But like I said, I think I've made it pretty clear. I think it can, no, it could benefit absolutely anybody that's open to engaging with it. And so, yeah, don't just give up if you have a bad experience with one, I say bad experience, or an experience that you didn't feel quite worked out for you with a counsellor. It's always worth knowing what's available in your own area. There's you can usually be referred by your GP to a counsellor. There's often you can self-refer for talking therapies, or you can seek a private therapist. And I'll put a link where you can find details of counsellors and therapists in your local area. Now, the other thing about counselling, it is hard. There's no getting away from it. It can be very, very difficult and can bring up some very difficult things. But when you're in a place of real kind of struggle, you're in that place anyway. It's not going to be easy, but it's worth it, and that's the key thing. And it's I would say it's a process. It takes time, but by trusting that process and allowing it that time and engaging with it, you will see improvements. Now, another thing I want to highlight is the use of medication, of antidepressants. And this is really important because there's a lot of stigma and fear around antidepressants. And I certainly have experienced this. And it's funny because when I talk about kind of stigma in society, we can often not really be aware of it until we're in that position, and then we really feel it, because things I'd never thought before. I think I'm an open-minded bloke, and I'll I'm not going to belittle anything anyone does to help them. But I remember, as soon as I was prescribed antidepressants for the first time, straight away in my head, I'm not taking them. I'm not taking them. I need to beat this on my own. You wouldn't think that with a serious physical illness, like a beta blocker or whatever, or something, to lower your blood pressure. Nah, gonna beat it on my own. I mean, you're ridiculous. But it's almost an automatic response that we can't accept this treatment that can help us. Now, part of that is a fear of the effects of it, and you hear about people saying, it was like a zombie, didn't feel anything anymore, sleptwalk through life, or worry about becoming dependent on them. Now, again, I can only talk from my own experience, and everyone's got to decide what's right for them. All I can say is that I know that antidepressants have really helped me massively. Now, that's not to say that is the case for everyone, but all I'm saying is don't just automatically rule them out. We need to be able to accept help. Now, if part of that is medication, it can and does help a huge amount of people in a big way. They're not happy pills. I mean, again, there's this thing about, and I remember I did something where met with the Sun newspaper about their reporting on it, and referring to taking happy pills. They don't get you bouncing around on the clouds. But conversely, I can only speak from my experience. I don't think I come across as a zombie. Now, I might do, I don't know. But I've taken antidepressants for a number of years now. And if I have to take them for the rest of my life, it doesn't bother me in the slightest bit. Antidepressants haven't turned me into a zombie or anything bad. They've allowed me to be me again, because depression stripped that away from me. And antidepressants are part of what helps me to be me. And if that means I have to swallow a tablet every morning, no big deal. It's no big deal for me. So again, it's just high. Don't close your mind off to things that may be able to help. There's stuff around lifestyle, the things about our diet, our sleep, things that are very important for us in maintaining good health, being active, all these things can be really helpful in terms of maintaining good mental health. And there's something that's called the 5 Ways to Wellbeing, which I'd really recommend. Now, this is both in terms of helping us through, when we are struggling, but also something that just good habits to get into to maintain good mental health and well-being. Because mental health, we have a difference in how we view mental health as a society. And I deliver a lot of training. Now, when I ask people what is mental health, they'll tend to say anxiety, depression, not coping, stress. So, okay, well, what's physical health? It's strength, it's fitness, it's endurance, it's a good diet. You see the difference? When we ask what mental health is, it's mental illness. And the focus is on illness. When it's physical health, we talk about the positive aspects. Now, mental health, being mentally healthy, it's about thriving, fulfilling your potential, being a part of your community. It's mental illness or mental health problems are when your mental health is such that you can't do those things, you can't function. And that's, I mean, obviously I've explained that the difference between, you're feeling unhappy and actually being clinically depressed is a huge difference. And so these 5 ways to well-being, in a similar way that with our physical health, we all know what the 5 a day is. Most of us know 5 a day, 5 fruit and veg, help you stay physically healthy. Well, the 5 ways to well-being was something that was developed in a similar way, with a similar goal of giving people some clear, simple messages of things that they can do to keep them mentally healthy. And those things are to be active, And that might be going for a walk, doing the gardening, it might be active sport, whatever it might be, but being more active. To be connected. So we, again, I've said this earlier, we're a social species. Connections are really important to us. Feeling we belong, feeling we fit in, being part of us, having a sense of community. They're really important things to us. And when we can have, and deep connections in particular, are very powerful. Now, I also have a view around a connection to a deeper sense of purpose, a connection to something bigger than ourselves. I think it's very important as well. The third one is about being mindful. It's called taking notice, which is essentially about being not mindful, being in the moment, being consciously aware of our senses, how we feel, what we can see, what we can smell, what we can touch, what we can hear. Being in the moment, not living, not spending time in the past and full of regret, or not worried and stressed and anxious about the future. It's about living skillfully in the present moment and being conscious. And you often hear this term mindfulness being used to describe that. The fourth one is to keep learning. That stimulates the brain. It helps us in terms of our confidence, giving us goals, things to aim for, allows us to new opportunities to arise. Keep learning, very important. And the fifth one, the final of the ways to well-being, is about giving. So there's a saying about doing good does you good. So kind of being out of ourselves and focusing on other people, on helping people, on being nice to people. Again, it can be very simple. It might be making a donation to charity. It might be going and knocking on the door, checking in on your neighbour. Whatever it might be formal volunteering, a sports club, in a shop, on a gardening project, a green gym, whatever it might be. So they're the 5 ways to well-being. It's really useful way of considering how things that you're doing in your life that contribute to positive mental health and well-being. Now, something else that really helped me when I was struggling, and it links to what I've just said there around 5 ways to well-being, but finding something that you can kind of lose yourself in. Now, and I've described, when I was depressed, I had no desire to do anything, and it's really difficult when the things that you love, for me, watching boxing, reading, listening to music, when you get no enjoyment out of that anymore, being with friends, family, it's really, really painful. When all the joy's been sucked out of your life, I mean, it's very, very difficult to cope with. What I did, finding things that you still are able to do, and even if you don't enjoy them. So for me, it was reading my boxing books that I found simple to read, and reading things that I'd read before. It wasn't taxing. But while I was doing that, my brain wasn't rushing here, there, and everywhere, and it released that kind of vice feeling that I had around my head. The other thing was playing on my PlayStation. Again, in a game where, when you're concentrating on the game, for that moment, I suppose you're allowing your brain to kind of rest and not to be, again, battered by all of these thoughts, which was how my days were, really, with my head being bam, 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 bam. So I've heard Marion Keyes, the author, she baking was what really helped her. With some people, it's the gym, but something that, even if you're not getting that enjoyment out of it, you can kind of still do, and you can partly lose yourself in, and over time, again, you can see significant improvements. Now, the other thing that I want to quickly touch on here that has been hugely beneficial for me, and I know there's specific projects around this, is about creativity as a means of helping to improve our mental health. And for me, I wrote about my experiences, and writing was just improved my life in so many ways, in terms of being able to articulate what I was feeling, not just when I was depressed, but generally in terms of a way that I kind of deal with life and what it throws at me generally. So for me, it was writing, and I never thought I was creative, because one of the first things you might think, well, I'm not creative, but I mean, we've all got a creative spirit in us somewhere, in some way. And but there's so many different media, different means of expressing ourselves creatively. Some of us are creative in our jobs, in our work. Some of us can find creative solutions to kind of day-to-day situations at work. It might be painting, it might be drawing. In my case, it's writing and writing poetry. It might be music, it might be drama, whatever it might be. But what it gives you is a way of expressing yourself. And for me, it helped to provide a bit of distance between me and whatever issues I'm kind of facing at a time, because it allows me to explore it, to see it objectively, but also to process things. And by expressing how we feel, it can reduce the power of the power that those feelings have over us. And when I said at the start about how we all have these feelings and emotions and we need to be able to express them, well, this is something that can be really, really helpful, and certainly has been to me, is expressing them creatively. And one of the things that's amazing about it, and certainly made me reevaluate this idea I had that I wasn't a creative person, is that when I sat down with a pen and a piece of paper, stuff just came out of me. It didn't feel conscious, like I was thinking, what am I going to write? I know, I'll write that. I just sat down with a pen, scribble, and things came out. And again, it might be with a paintbrush that happens for you, or get a microphone, a guitar, whatever it might be. But I see it as it's a medium that releases something from inside, inside of us, and lets out things. And different ways of forms of expression will work for different people. For me, I write differently when I've got a pen in my hand to how I do when I'm typing on a computer. It's just an amazing thing of how we can reveal and become aware of different parts of ourselves, but also connect with others. And I've talked about this sharing of our experiences and how that can really help, and I'm hoping that this is helping you now. And again, by expressing ourselves creatively, it helps us to create connections with others and to help others. And it links to that 5 ways to well-being, the giving, giving something of ourselves through our own experiences, and putting ourselves out in the world creatively, it can bring huge benefits. Again, as I said before, it's all about finding that way through that works for us. Now, another thing I believe is very, very important is this idea of having a sense of purpose. Now, this is something, a book by Johann Hari, I believe it's pronounced, Lost Connections, and he talks about a number of the causes of depression in modern life. Things about being lonely, about not having that human connection, about being disconnected from nature, but also about not feeling connected to a deeper sense of purpose. When we wonder, what's the point? What am I here for? What good am I doing? What benefit is my life having? Because we, again, as part of again, I come back to this thing, we're a social species, and contribute to making other people's life better. It makes us feel good. And so having a sense of purpose can really help us, gives us a sense of direction, gives us a sense of momentum, of goals to aim for, things that make us feel good. Now, I'm not talking here necessarily about I have a defined life purpose that's set for me and I've got to find it. Now, some people believe that and that works for them. I'm very open-minded. I'm not going to say, well, this, you shouldn't believe that, you need to believe this. And, we find our own, what works for us. So, again, if you feel that strongly that you do have a definitive purpose, then that's brilliant. If not, like I said, it's about having a sense of purpose, that what you're doing in your life, what you spend your days doing, the way that you live, that you feel it's purposeful activity, that it's contributing something somewhere, making some kind of difference to someone. And again, this isn't necessarily changing the world. It might be, for a lot of people, your sense of purpose might come from the life that you're giving your kids. So you that sense of purpose may change at different stages of your life. You might want to be a stay-at-home parent for a while, then at a later point you might want to go to work, dedicate your time to that. You then might want to retire and dedicate your time and get a sense of purpose through enjoying what you've earned and doing very little, or volunteering your time. Again, it's an entirely individual thing, but leading a life that feels purposeful, again, is very good for our mental health.